All right, let's jump right into this incredibly powerful explainer of Alphonse Daudet's classic story, The Last Lesson. Whether you're here for a deep dive literary analysis or you just need the absolute best one-shot revision guide for your upcoming exams, you are definitely in the right place. We are going to unpack the history, the characters, and all the hidden symbols of this masterpiece.
But before we even get into the characters or the plot, I want you to just pause for a second and really imagine the profound shock of having your very language stripped away overnight. I mean, imagine showing up to school and being told that the words you use to speak to your family, to think, and to just express yourself are suddenly forbidden. That is the devastating reality our characters are about to face.
So, here is our roadmap for today's explainer. 1. History behind the lesson. 2. Franz's emotional awakening. 3. M. Hamel's final act. 4. Key themes and symbols. And 5. The ultimate takeaway.
Okay, let's start with Section 1, History Behind the Lesson, the geopolitical stakes of 1870.
To really understand why this story hits so hard, you have to know that it was published in 1873, right on the heels of the Franco-Prussian War. France, led by Napoleon III, was completely defeated by Prussia under Chancellor Otto von Bismarck. And the crucial thing you need to remember here are the northeastern French districts of Alsace and Lorraine. Under the final treaty, those specific territories were annexed by Germany.
Notice how insanely fast a geopolitical war translates into an immediate cultural loss for the local villagers. Literally overnight, an order comes directly from Berlin stating that only German will be taught in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. A new master is arriving the very next day. The political boundary moved, sure, but the new rulers wanted to change the very minds of the people.
Now, if you memorize one key term for your exams today, make it this one: linguistic chauvinism. It perfectly describes the Prussian leadership's attempt at cultural erasure through language. By forcefully pushing German onto the people and banning French, they aren't just swapping out the school curriculum, They're actively trying to erase the French identity, the history, and the entire culture of the people living in those occupied territories.
Moving right along to Section 2, Franz's emotional awakening, from careless boy to patriotic youth.
So we start the day with young Franz. And honestly, he is completely oblivious to the massive geopolitical sea change happening around him. He's running late, and actually, he's basically terrified of getting scolded because he hasn't prepared his grammar quiz on participles. In fact, he seriously considers just skipping school entirely to go watch the Prussian soldiers drilling in the open field. He's treating this hostile foreign military as if they're just another normal part of the scenery.
This before and after contrast is absolutely vital for your character sketch. When Franz gets to school, he sees a crowd at the town hall bulletin board, which is usually the source of all bad news, but he just ignores it. He's expecting the usual loud classroom chaos so he can sneak to his desk unseen, but instead, it is dead quiet, like a Sunday morning. When his teacher announces the order from Berlin, it hits Franz like a ton of bricks. He experiences this massive emotional awakening. The grammar and history books that felt so heavy and annoying just moments ago, suddenly they feel like old, precious friends that he simply cannot give up. All this regret just crashes over him as he realizes he totally took his education and his very identity for granted.
Which brings us to Section 3, Hamel's final act, a teacher's ultimate cultural defiance.
Now, M. Hamel is usually a super strict, cranky guy with an iron ruler, but today is different. He served this village school for 40 years, and to honor this incredibly tragic occasion, he's wearing his beautiful green coat, frilled shirt, and embroidered black silk cap. Those are clothes he usually only saves for special prize days. And instead of yelling at Franz for being late or failing his recitation, he treats him with this really unusual, deep compassion. He even blames himself and the parents for the village's apathy toward learning, admitting he'd often sent students to water his flowers or gave them random holidays just so he could go fishing.
During this final lesson, M. Hamel delivers this deeply nationalistic sentiment. Seriously, this is arguably the most important quote to memorize from the entire text. He tells the room that French is the most beautiful, clear, and logical language in the world. What he's really telling them is that, even when faced with total cultural erasure, their language is their ultimate tool for maintaining an independent identity. It is literally the key to their prison. And it all builds to this incredibly moving conclusion. As the church clock strikes 12 and the trumpets of the returning Prussian soldiers start sounding right outside their windows, M. Hamel stands up. He is pale, completely overwhelmed with emotion, and he's so choked up he physically cannot speak. So what does he do? He turns to the blackboard, bears down with all his might, and writes as large as he possibly can, "Vive la France, long live France." It is this incredibly powerful, silent, and defiant gesture of unwavering patriotism right before he dismisses the class.
All right, let's jump to section 4, key themes and symbols, deconstructing Alphonse Daudet's text. Okay, I highly recommend you take a screenshot of this table right now, because connecting these specific symbols to their broader meanings is the absolute secret to nailing a perfect literary analysis. For instance, look at the silent classroom. Usually there's a huge bustle, right? But today it's dead silent, and it's filled not just with students, but with the elderly villagers, like old Hauser with his thumbed primer. They're sitting way in the back benches, acting as this collective representation of grief and regret for not valuing their education. It's almost like they're there to attend a funeral for education itself.
While the class is silently tracing their letters, Franz hears some pigeons cooing up on the roof and thinks this exact question to himself. It is such a sharp, yet completely innocent critique of the limits of Prussian linguistic chauvinism. The Prussian regime can force people to change the language in their schools, sure, but they can't change the natural order of things. And they certainly cannot easily erase the deeply rooted cultural soul of a people.
Finally, Section 5, the ultimate takeaway. Why Daudet's 1873 story matters today.
So the absolutely crucial point you should take away from all of this is that the last lesson is entirely about how we often completely fail to appreciate what we have until it is taken away from us. Franz and the villagers represent anyone who takes their everyday freedoms for granted. Education isn't just about passing a random grammar test on participles, it is the literal preservation of history, identity, and freedom against oppressive forces.
I'm going to leave you with this final thought to ponder. Daudet shows us that freedom can absolutely be taken away by military force, but identity? Identity survives through collective memory and culture. So, if your language was outlawed tomorrow, what would be your key to the prison? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and seriously, best of luck with your revisions.